Chapter 12. Synecdoche. Morning. From a distance I watch the group roaming the jungle, and although the rain sprays a shower of white mist between us, still I see them. Through their worry, their sadness, the echoes, the two men murdered, and my unjust freedom from responsibility. These things keep their heads at a low hang. Even Paul stays focused on the trail, staggering along with his hand close to the grip of his rifle. Even Smith and Kyle curse me, their hate glowing red in last night's campfire. And I watch them huddle around that damn campfire last night, keeping warm as I sit out in this wet grass. I watch them. I will not let them leave my sight. I cannot leave Carta, and I must reach Claire before they do. I need to explain myself to her, not have my actions told through the passive manipulation from a giant Indian and a black man with a streak of Machiavellianism. No, Claire will understand me. She will help me. She will know why I had to murder. And of course the death of that twin boy was not intentional, it was a reaction. One made out of genuine fear for my life. And goddamn anyone who tells me there were other options. Goddamn anyone who pretends to know what it feels like to fear for your own life every second of every day. As then, I was a prisoner and my guard was the executioner. His wet desire engaged with my anxiety. And now I am the weak and wounded dog, banished from the tribe. I crouch in this thick grass, shivering in this heavy downpour, watching them with no mercy, no regret. For the rain has brought a new cold to the jungle, and within its deafening downpour to what lurks beyond it, I stay hidden. My new craft is stealth. I have rubbed mud onto my exposed skin. I am now just a black dot in the distant trees, although in the night I move close enough to hear their conversations. And I watch them. Paul is weaker, and his leg injury focuses his attention every few hours. Carta and Kyle tend to him, and they fear an infection soon. Smith and Javo remain close to one another, and it seems that Carta has shunned Smith, as she hasn't spoken a word to him since I ran away. Her new pet is Kyle. The man they call Greg keeps his presence just as low-key as always. And the younger twin, Tim the crybaby, finally steadies himself, as for once he holds back his tears since his brother's death. I think, if I am killed, I hope it is by that boy's hands. He is the only one here who deserves true justice, and that is in spite of his lack in understanding the backbone of a successful revenge, which is to remain calm, don't rampage, and know the effect is never the cause, and the root of your pain always lies within the circumstances that surround said pain. Therefore, kill the creator, not the man submerged and suffering in the same shit soup which that creator cooked and salted with disregard for all else. This green world, could it be a creator who brings these dreams, these creatures in the night? Is it that alien in my brain, that god to which man has always been suspicious of, but has designed his world with affection toward? Or is it that unknown other whose words I hear echoing within my dreams, telling me that he is me, through the absence of the chip in my brain? Could it be that these nightmares have always existed and my gray node held them at bay? Was it implanted into our brains at birth to mask our minds from reality? Assume that Kilgore actually told the truth and removed the devices, and the world we see now is the true world, the nature of which was suppressed at birth. So then Carta was always here, and Kilgore's kind were always here as well, in the shadows, watching us, just as I watch my fellow animals shuffle their preset decks of human stress. I think of last night as they buried the dead, both the twin and the gutted man in the same shallow grave. Paul spoke of how the death of the horses will delay the arrival to Claire by only a day. He mentioned that the group will remain together, and when they are close to the body bag, they will wait a few hours before approaching due to the delay and the uncertainty of this being the last of us to arrive in this jungle. So I plan to follow them using stealth to the point of their orders and approach Claire before them. I will take her and I will beg for her forgiveness. If that tiny blonde woman runs, then so be it. Claire and I will run too. And we will find the end of this jungle. We will escape. And as I peek through this thick, wet green, I compensate my suffering, for I have developed mastery of stealth and my rifle hand is at a constant practice for defense. There are 3 bullets left in my magazine, and as my fellow animals take a break under a large tree, I steady the crosshairs of my scope on Paul's face. I continue to hover the magnification of my scope around the group. Smith and Javo with an expression of fear for their own lives. And Kyle trembles in the cold rain with that same fear. As I shift my scope to Carta, she looks back in my direction, almost as if she sees me. She now only wears her sleeveless rubber suit, as she left her uniform back at that spring where we first made love. A fight to the death. She retrieves her things from the ground and continues along the trail. My shame of doubting her is struggling with my fear of losing her. And that familiar boil of acid is in my throat. And now I know it only comes from the thought that I will never have her as my own. As I remember, the bitter fluid was absent when she first walked up to me in that town. And it is odd. Watching her through this scope. It seems familiar. Like I've watched her this way before. Yes. When I designed her. Every day for 5 years. She would be on my computer screen. There were always new things to add. A scar here. A freckle there. Sometimes I would just undress her model and make her pose for me. But it's not just that. Her in this jungle. Her in that human suit. These things are familiar too. And as I watch the group begin to make their way along the trail again, I follow in the shadows. I regret that I left my boots behind. And my bare feet are stained a mossy green from the jungle matter on the ground. I smell infection to the cuts and scrapes upon them. Yet I am confident I won't catch a fever, as the new wet cold is keeping my temperature below the point of worry. That human weakness. That flaw in the genetic code. So without contemplation, I follow. I shiver. And I wait. One day later. A nightmare took a hold of my world last night. 5 spinal-like creatures, exactly like the thing hanging from the roof in Kilgore's lab, observed me from the shadows. There were 5 of them resting on a riverbank. In this dream the rain was absent, yet I still felt it filling my ear from the other side of that mental plane. I carved the word core into a tree again, and just as I finished that word, one of the creatures grew to a larger spread. I saw its exposed brain firing an electric current. These are the sparks and thunder. They were loud. And my paranoia kept one ear on the other side, listening to the outer world for any unconscious threat. Claire. As the sun begins its decline, we reach Claire's location. I lead on ahead of the group, and through a clearing I see the body bag resting on an old, dilapidated dock. I raise my scope to view it, yet the heavy downpour makes it impossible to see if the bag is occupied. I waste no time and I sling my rifle over my shoulder and begin a fast jog toward the bag. My feet sink into soft mud, and the shells and rocks within it slice through my toes. Yet despite this I do not slow down. I must hurry. And as I approach the bag I notice the dark leather from which it is made now shines with an unusual red. And as I come directly upon it, I see that the bag has been torn to shreds. And as I pause I smell the blood. It is fresh. A recent slaughter happened here. Saturated by rain, the red blood still flows along the ground at my wounded feet. And I watch it mix with my blood. And then, the thick rain. And its heavy downpour reverses its flow toward the sun. The jungle is quiet for a few seconds before crickets begin to celebrate and sing to the rainbow that is surely illuminating the backside of these tall trees. A small river of blood and rain finishes its flow around the bag, and I notice a wad of feathery hair, brunette and straight, clumped together and entangled in the bag's zipper. I know it is Claire's hair and I raise my attention beyond it to a large tree. The tree stands tall, wide, and appears dead. A black trunk covered in old wounds left by a high voltage. But it is not dead. It is a tree that still lives on after a fatal injury. An injury destroying its ability to participate in its own meaning. To produce fruit. It is a tree that lives as a new plant with a new meaning. And it is to help me realize mine. And on this tree resting between large, forked limbs, I find Claire. Her face is untouched and her eyes are opened, and those blues are watching me. Yet there is no life in them, because there is no skin on her body. From her toes to her neckline, she is flayed of her human suit, and at her belly, there is nothing but a long spine that gleams with a slick, red reflection from the dying sun. I cry. I do cry inside. And it is an honest cry. It is a cry that is so inflexible that my eyes bulge from my skull as I strain to resist allowing tears to come from them. Then I scream. But not too loud. Just through my throat. As my teeth will not unlock from a hard clamp against my lower jaw. I scan my wet eyes along the tree to ensure that the blonde woman is not strung up by her own intestines too. And I know those creatures took her. Jack. I hear Kyle yell across the expanse of the clearing at my rear. I look back and I see Carter kicking him to the ground, punishing him for drawing my attention. Beside her, I see Paul with his rifle. A glare from his scope blinds my eyes and I fall to the ground just as he sends a bullet pulsating through the wind where my head was. I run and duck behind a fallen tree. Then I unlatch the safety on my rifle. I raise from my cover and fire a shot at Paul just as he fires a shot back at me. We both miss our target. And before I duck back to cover, I see my crew running off into the thick while Carter and Solomon begin firing their rifles, shredding apart the large log and exploding its bark to obscure my vision. From my memory, I count the number of rounds left in my weapons magazine. 1 killed that kid. 1 missed. And I feel my hands begin to shake and I vomit onto my bloody feet. I feel disrupted. I think, or I hear, I'm not so sharp at this moment. And I know I do not think like this. And I know this mind is overdue for any form of faith or resolve. Be the resolve. I say to my rifle. Let me win. I use the bolt on the rifle to chamber another round. 2 more. I say. And I then raise myself and show to Paul and the others. I am covered in mud and my body still trembles from my mental anguish. This is my new design. My awakening to my new form. A new animal. And the others can see it in my eyes. And I believe this is why they missed their shots. For my new form is dominant and threatening. Call me the fucking alpha. And give me a fair battle. A reason for winning. A goal at the end. And like Paul, a natural homicide resides in my expression. And it is not the weak kind. It is the true kind. The kind with purpose. So unlike all those who came running through this jungle before me, those men who look like me, I will not grow older and more desperate for lack of meaning, or worry about whatever powers this world. I will not begin to think of anger as weakness. That is a sign that my species has accepted a false history, one designed by the enemy, to keep us in this jungle, to use our skin. Fuck that. I accept my anger. I treat it as a pet, one that needs to be tamed and disciplined, trained like a dog, a good boy. Because like a good dog, when that adversary comes, the control of my rage will remain loyal. And just as quick as I rise from behind my cover, I fall back into it, but I catch a glimpse of my enemies. As I rise again, I fire a shot directly into Paul's backpack, and I pray that damn monkey is inside. And at this Paul becomes distracted. And I use this diversion to escape with my last bullet, to run past the tree that holds Claire's mangled body, down a steep embankment, and into a small creek. The twin. Tim. The flow of creek water is soothing to my infected feet, yet, like a giant anthill of jungle matter, limbs, vines, and thorns, all interconnected but impossible to navigate. The creek is smothered in this narrow overgrowth so dense that I have to squeeze and crawl through its tunnels. However, these narrow tunnels will also affect my enemy's ability to find me. And now, after thrashing through this mess, I hear them doing just that. I think of how they wasted no time mourning Claire's death, as they would have killed her regardless, and I wonder if they will kill my colleagues too. With the sun obscured by this new crowded ecosystem, the air grows black. And although it is impossible to see them through this thick vegetation, I hear them on all sides of me. Their bodies cast sporadic shadows along these dark tunnels, and I believe someone has caught up with me, or passed me, and as I struggle through a web of vines, I collide with the twin, Tim, and we both fall to the ground. His eyes are full of shock. Mine. Accomplishment. I see his lips open wide to call the others to our location, but I land a fist to his chin before he has the chance. And as we wrestle in the shallow creek water, I realize that Timmy is stronger than I expected. His right hand grip is a true challenge, so true that I feel sorry for his tiny pecker. And as he struggles, throwing his fist into my teeth and trying to retrieve his hunting knife, I eat his repeated blows with no thought of pain. Tim is a good boy, obedient and clean. He has loved and lost, as all good boys should. And now that I see this in his eyes, that he is watching his own anger for me boil to murder, I see that he fears this anger. He fears who he has become. This weakness is his surrender. And the price owed for this oppression is a chokehold of my arms. While locking one arm around his neck and a hand over his mouth, I whisper a lullaby to his ear. Oh sweet Jimmy laying in a creek, how wrong you are to challenge me. Timmy Tim jacking in the leaves, while your brother bleeds. I squeeze harder. And Tim's back flexes against my chest as he attempts to escape, wheezing and moaning like a child. And like the mother mantis, I wrap my legs around his waist and ignore his bites to my hand. I whisper to him again. Come on, Timmy. Give in. You've lost. Yes. I feel guilt. I feel feelings. But it is something new in my perception here. Killing this boy doesn't feel like murder. No. It just feels like another walk by the river. Like I've done it many times before. I saw Claire hanging in that tree and my mind became autonomous. As though there is some information inaccessible to Jack, myself, and it is intimate, familiar. And Tim's right ear turns blue and hovers near my eyes. I ask myself, did I do this before? And I remember writing that lullaby ages ago. This has happened before, I think, and my instinct agrees. And now, I hear loud stomping nearby. I arch my back in relation to my pull. And with my legs leveraging my arms, the best position for strangulation, I squeeze tighter until I hear Tim's throat popping. And I imagine his cracking spine is a relief for him. I believe this wholeheartedly, for his sigh is no death rattle. It is a long, peaceful sleep. I lay on my back, my new pal Tim dead in my arms and resting atop my chest. I look beyond his lifeless ear to the thick dome of vines above, and I whisper to him one last time. I own this spot now, Timmy. But I will keep it sacred. For your memory. I roll his body from mine, and I peer through an opening in the thick above. Upon a vine I see one of those colorful birds. It side-eyes me before flying away. And behind it, I see Paul's monkey. It has found me, and it sits on a tree limb with worry in its eyes. And as the monkey calls out to reveal my location, I hear that song of those echoes exploding through the jungle again. This time they are distant, faded. Yet their song pulsates against my nerves just the same. So I continue tumbling through the vines as I do not expect Paul to be fazed by these screaming banshees. His duty, his meaning, and his mission has failed. And now his new calling is to cut lines through those scars in his forearm. And I expect, if he catches me, he will take my dick first. I hear Smith's voice bounce around in the darkness. He says that the screaming echoes are coming for the direction of Zephyr. And I hear the others agree. And I agree with him. Those echoes are fading from us and heading toward the town. So I will follow the rising moon back to that dead tree. Wait for these sad fucks to cross. And trail them back to Zephyr. And I think only of Carta and I pray she doesn't find that boy's body. There is no doubt of it. She will never forgive me. The very thought of her existence has always been that she exists in my mind and in my gray node. And that she lives through a small device I attach to that gray node. She is designed by creators who I understand. They are human. And they are us. But I must remember that here she is human flesh. Her brain here is filled with the same stuff as mine. Yet I cannot help preserving these thoughts, that she knows me. She knows what I have done. And she judges me for my faults. So, this means that her hate toward me all falls back to them. To these people of Zephyr. And I remember that she bathes in that sun. And I remember the ancient men watching her. I regret nothing. As my pity for those I've killed and those I will kill is honest and justified. And I think, is this the meaning of sympathy for the devil? Like they tried with Smith. This group of people who taint her mind. They make her think that she has some kind of cause. They make her hate me. Night. When I finally find isolation, a tree to cuddle, I sleep and I dream. But it is not my normal nighttime reverie. In this dream I am a machine. A robot with a human carapace. In the medbay aboard that ship. I sit at a steel countertop with them. 3 of them. Young and beautiful. Flesh and bone. They are ladies of healing. And they nurse my intoxication with soft smiles and wide hips. I tell them, it is not that I am a madman. I just look as though I am. And I then flirt with their desires. These looks come from a long history of violence. As they laugh I notice their admiration of my charm. And that it resides beyond the metal youth of my species. Like some other who exists outside of the socialized male. Something alien. I ask them if they have lost faith in the meaning of their job or do they just work as robots. As slaves to a biological system as I do. I explain to them that there must be a way to fix any man's brain if the damage is not caused by physical injury, but from the social and circumstantial. And this concept should come easy to those who call themselves doctors. And the understanding should keep them in their practice for honor. with a strong focus on repairing the species rather than fucking the secretary. I tell them now that before I leave this body, I will improve the one I currently occupy. I snap my fingers together and say, done. Fixed. And the three women laugh again. And I see myself back at Tim's deathbed. The place where I snapped his neck. And I see myself choking him. But I don't kill him. No, in this dream I'm too scared to murder. And Tim gets the others' attention. And Paul sends a bullet through my head.